One of the biggest questions I always get online and in forums is, how do I make a good quality mushroom tincture? How do I make a dual extracted tincture? How do I capture all of the best benefits of the mushrooms? So in this video, I want to share with you a lot more about this. We're going to make this super simple, but I'm also going to give you a few different tips and tricks and alternative methods to making your own very best dual extracted mushroom tincture. Part of the reason that people have so many questions about making dual extracted tinctures is because there are a lot of different methods. There's a lot of different ways. But ultimately, the goal of the tincture is to extract both the alcohol and the water-soluble compounds that are found in medicinal mushrooms and bring them together in the most concentrated form. So that's what we're going to do today. I'm going to make a really basic layman's tincture, but I'm also going to show you a few different ways to really upgrade and enhance the potency of that mushroom tincture. So today we're going to make a wild mushroom melody with 5 different wild mushrooms. You can do these tinctures individually, but for the sake of this video, we're going to do all 5 together in one decoction. So before we get started, I want to make sure I just share with you a bit about each mushroom and kind of why we're adding it into this blend. This is my favorite kind of blend to make because it has so many health enhancing qualities from all of these individual mushrooms. And much of the science is showing that when we combine them together, we can actually get a lot wider spectrum of these branch polysaccharides and more of the terpenes and polyphenol groups. And so in this case, we're making this wild melody in order to have that full spectrum mushroom extract. First off, we have turkey tail. Now, turkey tail is one of the most immune-enhancing mushrooms. It's got antiviral properties. It's great for supporting the liver and detoxification of the body, but it's also one of these ones that's been used heavily in cancer, chemotherapy research, and in working with tumor systems. So just a great overall immune-enhancing mushroom that's super abundant and grows all through the alder trees in our part of the world. The next one I have is the Ganoderma applanatum. Now, this is our artist conch, and it's a really cool mushroom that grows all over the world, but especially in this part of the world, has a nice brown cap, and it has very antibacterial, antifungal, antipathogenic qualities. It's great as an antiseptic and really good for enhancing the immune system, and it's our local reishi, or one of them anyway. It's a perennial as well. The next one I have is the red belted polypore. And just like the Ganoderma applanatum, this is a perennial mushroom too that grows all over the world. And the real benefits to this mushroom are its ability to enhance the immune system again, but also support antibacterial and antiseptic qualities. So just a great mushroom to kind of add to really, again, that antipathogenic immune supportive function. The next one I have is our Ganoderma oregonense, and this is the West Coast reishi. This is related to the reishi of the Orient, but it's the one that grows here in my part of the world. It loves those hemlock trees. It grows big fat caps. You can see by the thickness of some of these, and it has some of those qualities of like spirit grounding, connected aspects. It also enhances the immune system, helps the body recognize tumor systems, and it supports the heart, cardiovascular, all kinds of other aspects. Lastly, we have chaga. Now, this is considered the king of the mushrooms. It grows abundantly on the birch trees, which are not in this part of the world, but are all throughout Canada and into the States and across Siberia and all these other places. A wild harvester friend of mine harvested this for me, and it's one of those really wonderful tasting mushrooms with a bit of vanilla flavor, but also has these deep immune supportive qualities, great for cardiovascular health, stabilizing blood sugars, and so much more. So we put all these together and we're gonna have a really potent medicinal mushroom tincture. Okay, so now we're gonna get into the process of making this tincture. So we have 2 different steps as a dual extraction. We're gonna make an alcohol extract and a water extract. Now, for one of the really simple methods, all we need to do is add the alcohol into the water extract afterwards. But for the sake of this video, we're gonna do both different types of extraction just to show you how this is done. First, we'll be making an alcohol extraction like so, where we're gonna take a measured amount of the mushrooms and add them to a measured amount of the alcohol. Typically what we wanna do is what's called a 1 to 5. So for 1 gram of the mushrooms, we're gonna do 5 milliliters of alcohol. And in this case, we want to work with a 75% alcohol. So that's what I've built here. If we have the time, we're going to try to build this tincture 2 weeks before we make our decoction with the mushrooms, before we make our water extract. The reason we want to give it 2 weeks is that allows the mushrooms to fully extract into the alcohol. Now, if we don't have that time, and that's not a luxury, what we can do is we can make that tincture and let it go for a day or two and then blend it up in a blender to make it really fine. The more fine the particulate, the faster it'll extract. So sometimes this is what I will do. If I don't have the time and I want to make it dual extract and I only have a weekend, I'll make it the day before or the night before and then blend it in the blender and really just keep shaking it to get as much extraction as I can out of those mushrooms before I go to pitch it into the decoction. When making a tincture, it's useful to have a log. That way we can have consistency from batch to batch to batch. So I've produced a little log here, and it's really basic, it's simple. All you really need to do is make sure you have the tincture characteristics, the batch number and the date, the weight of your dried material, the form if you have it, in that sense that it comes in, whether you produce it into, whether it's a powder or a cut, the amount of alcohol you're using, and then the ratios of how that came out in your final extract. So simply this could be done on a piece of paper or in a book, or you can create a log that has all these qualities to it. The same thing goes with your decoction. It's nice to have a log to have a repeatable step so you can get consistency throughout the process. For making our mushroom tincture, I'm gonna do it in a 1 liter mason jar here. Now I know that means I can't fit a full liter of alcohol in it, so I'm gonna have to reverse engineer my 1 to 5. So let's go with, say, 750 mils of our alcohol. And if we bring that down to 1 to 5, we need about 150 grams of our mushrooms, right? 150 grams times 5 is 750. So I'm gonna put 150 grams of our dried product to our 1 to 5 of 750 milliliters of alcohol. Now, because I'm trying to make a 75% alcohol, I'm gonna have to take what I have here as a 95% alcohol and reduce this down with water. So in that case, I'm gonna use a measuring cup. Here's my 95% alcohol. And I'm gonna go approximately 590, just below the 600 mil. Here's my water. I bring it up to a total volume of 750. All right, 750 mils. Now what we have to do is get our 150 grams of mushrooms. I have 5 different types here and I want kind of an equal ratio, although some of them are denser than others. The turkey tail is quite light, so to get an equal volume, I might use some of the heavier mushrooms like chaga in higher volumes. Now this is your choice if you're making a melody or a combination or formulating like this. If you're using one single mushroom, it'll be 150 grams of that mushroom into here. But in this case, I've got a little scale and a little Tupperware to put on here. And what we're gonna look for, just balance it to 0, is I'm gonna do 150 divided by 5 would bring me to somewhere around 30 each, 30 grams. But I feel like the turkey tail is quite light, so I'm gonna go with 20 grams of turkey tail. Here we go. And I'm gonna go with 30 grams of the other 3 polypores and then 40 grams of the chaga. $150 grams, 0.07. Perfect. Now, because all of these mushrooms are different sizes, I'm gonna take my pruning shears and just chop up some of the bigger chunks into here to make sure I've got more surface area. When it comes to making tinctures, the most important thing is that we have the right amount of surface area. The more the surface area, the faster the extract. So like I said, you could also do this in a blender, but for today's sake, I'm just gonna chop up some of the bigger pieces and then we'll get it all into this alcohol here. Now it's time to get started with our decoction. Now, a mushroom tincture will not go bad if the alcohol percentage is around 25% to 30%. So that's what we're gonna aim for in our final volume. So for the math on this, Basically, we're looking at a 75% alcohol that we're adding in. So if we add 1 part of our mushroom tincture at 75% to 2 parts of our decoction, we're gonna end up with around a 25% alcohol volume. So really easy math here. Basically, we're gonna have to produce around 1,500 milliliters of our decoction in order to match the 750 mils of our alcohol. Make sense? To get to the 1,500, we're gonna want to have a 1 to 5, which means 300 grams of our mushroom weight. And our water is going to be 20. In this case, we want to do 20 of this. So we're gonna start with 6,000 milliliters of our water, and we'll reduce that down to 1,500 milliliters like so. Of course, you can do this at home on your stove. I've just set up this little kitchen outside in the forest here because I like doing these mushroom decoctions outside. Often I'll make quite a bit bigger batch than this. So here we go. I've got about 6 liters that's already boiled and it's just getting back up to heat. It's been reduced already down by almost a half a liter. So it's now around 5.5 liters, but that's about perfect for what we're gonna do. I'm gonna go back and make a little blend of all the mushrooms to chuck it in here, and we're gonna let this decoct for a number of hours. Similar ratio to before, when we have 300 grams that we're looking for of the mushrooms, I'm gonna take about 60 grams of each, but because the turkey tail is lighter, I'll probably do about 40 grams of turkey tail and about 80 grams of chaga. I have a few bigger pieces, so I will cut a few of them up, but I'm gonna pitch most of this in. As the mushrooms soften in the water, they actually become a lot easier to chop up as well. So we'll start with this. Okay, there we have it. Now, all I've got to do is keep an eye on this, keep the heat low, so it's just a light simmer, and stir this every so often. I want to leave the lid off because I'm attempting to evaporate off some of this water and bring it down to that 1,500 mils. I can use my gauge on the side, knowing that once I put the mushrooms in there, this pot in particular is a good one because it has a measurement. We can also just take them off and measure it in another container later, but for now I'll be able to see as it reduces down once it gets to the right volume that I need. Now we got it simmering, and we'll let this go for another couple of hours till it really darkens up in color and reduces down. While we're waiting for our decoction to finish, I want to give you just a couple of other simple methods to make a dual extracted tincture. Now the first one that's quite simple is to take our decoction and just pitch straight alcohol into it. You're gonna have to do a bit of math to figure out what the actual amount of alcohol is, depending on if you've got a 95% alcohol or a 50% alcohol. Using the highest proof you have, so you have less water in your alcohol, is ideal. In this case, say we wanted to make a liter of a final product, we might take the reverse math and understand that at 95%, we're gonna need 263 milliliters of alcohol, and therefore around 740 milliliters of our decoction. So that's how we might do that. And we'd straight pitch it in and then put the lid on and let that sit for at least a week. Remembering you need at least 25% alcohol for it not to go bad. The downside to this is that you don't get that high alcohol extraction of the mushrooms. The upside to this is it's quite simple and an easy method to do. The next method that I wanted to mention is the freezer method. Now this is a very simple method too, but what we might do is we take our decoction and we will freeze the decoction, basically straining off all the mushrooms, stick the decoction in the freezer, and therefore we have an exact amount. Then we'll take those decocted mushrooms and we'll tincture those. So we're gonna use the same mushrooms versus the method I've shown you, which is having 2 different batches of mushrooms. One is alcohol, one is decoction. In this case, we can freeze the decoction and then tincture the marc or the leftover mushrooms. Put the 2 together, voila, we have a dual extracted tincture. The important piece is that you try to capture as much as you can out of the alcohol process and out of the decoction process. All right, we're finally there. And before I pitch the alcohol in, I gotta make sure I turn the stove off because I've done this in the past and it can be dangerous with a bit of flame and alcohol. Just just don't go there. So here we are, we've got a little under 2 liters. I'm gonna say we're at about that 1,500 mil. Now this is still approximate. I could squeeze out all those mushrooms to get the exact amount, but I'm not gonna do that because it's not really necessary. I've got a really thick, dark liquid here. Have a little look. You can see I've produced a really thick, dark liquid. We've decocted this down for a number of hours, and I think we're ready to go. When it comes to putting the alcohol in, I like to do this process while the mushrooms are still warm. I find that the bonds are broken open, and this is the best time to do it versus cooling down the decoction entirely. So I've let it cool down for about 20 minutes here, just taking it off the heat, and in that way, know that it's not gonna evaporate all off when I put the alcohol in, but right away, while it's warm, I'm still gonna put the lid right on to make sure we don't lose too much alcohol. Okay. I'll give this a good shake. One more quick stir. Oh yeah. Here we have it, our dual extracted tincture. We want to let this sit for a couple of days, at least a day or two, to kind of macerate a bit more before pouring it off. But in today's case, I'm going to pour a bit off using a filter here, just to show you what it is we're looking at. So we can kind of make sure we have the right thing. Now, obviously, we want to make sure that we strain this properly. Whoa. Oh yeah. But we also want to make sure that we're able to press this a little bit. So we can do that either by pressing it down in our filter or getting something like a nut milk bag or some cheesecloth and just really giving it a bit of pressure to press off that last bit of liquid. This decoction, ethanol extract, is pretty darn thick and strong, and this is what we're looking for. It should be this thick and shouldn't be clear or be able to see through it. It should be a nice, thick consistency, and that's gonna be the most potent medicine we can make with mushrooms. So once we've filtered this off and pressed it out, and we've got our liquid like this, we're gonna bottle it into easily usable sizes, typically a 50 ml or 100 ml dropper top bottle. I'm gonna take a little taste here and just give it a sample. Our typical dosage for this is gonna be around 1 to 2 milliliters, 1 to 2 times a day to give us our immune enhancing needs. All right, let's give it a try. Wow, that is potent. This is gonna be a great medicine for the winter months. Anyway, thank you for joining me in learning about dual extracted tinctures. Let me know what you think about this process, and I hope you have a good time crafting up your own dual extracted medicines.